Okay, so I'm Edward Mullen. I'm an author. I'm a YouTuber. I do podcasts and vlogs and blogs. And I even have a comic. So I created basically an adaptation of my book Prodigy, which is probably one of two books I'm most known for, Prodigy and Art of the Hustle. So because of the success of Prodigy, I turned it into a graphic novel. And it's always been my kind of dream to be a comic book writer. And while I did write a comic technically, it's just so cost prohibitive to just do it on your own. I always would love to work for Marvel or DC or one of these big comic book companies and work with some of their IP, particularly Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, Nightwing. Those are maybe some of the ones that I'm into. So in today's video, I'm actually going to pitch you what I would do in a hypothetical scenario if I landed a job at DC, given free reins on Superman. I could do anything I want to it with that character. Maybe write a miniseries. So this would be my pitch. Okay, so you're familiar with Old Man Logan, Old Man Wolverine. I would do Old Man Superman, and one of the kind of challenges with Superman is that his powers are so good. He's so powerful that it's his enemies, it's so hard to defeat him, right? He's got super speed, he can fly, he's got x-ray vision, heat vision, super hearing, supersonic speed, super strength. He's bulletproof. He's has super intellect. So it's very difficult for him to put him in the same kind of scenarios as a Spider-Man or a Batman, the bank robber or something. I mean, they're gonna have no chance with Superman. So I think as he ages, his powers should diminish. Maybe there's also some psychological things going on there as well. So picture, if you will, a super dense Superman, right? He's not ripped, but he's got that old man stocky strength. He's got maybe a big gray beard, maybe some gray long flowing hair, maybe a really dope scar somewhere on his face, implying that he's now kind of got some battle scars. He's not as invulnerable as he once was. Okay, so the opening act, it's Superman. He's kind of over saving Metropolis. He's had a whole life of sacrificing and foregoing other personal opportunities, like hanging out with his wife or having kids or all that kind of stuff. So in the opening scene, he's on vacation with Lois, and they're old. They're 70. And so they can't actually they can't fly over the Atlantic at super speed. Number one, Superman is not that fast anymore. Lois is old. She's gonna die before they get to the other side. Also, it just looked weird if some old dude is carrying his woman, some luggage, and a Tommy Bahama shirt, and he's flying into Hawaii. So they just take a normal plane and they fly off to the destination. So they're maybe talking about the life, this is a good life, and had I made choices differently, maybe I would have spent more time with you, Lois. Romantic, sunset, nice dinner, all that kind of stuff. There's a threat back home in Metropolis that Superman ignores. He turns his phone off or whatever, and he can't be bothered. Meanwhile, Lois, his wife, gets sick, and Superman takes her and flies her, not on a plane, but literally takes her and flies her back to Metropolis and puts her in a hospital, the best hospital possible, with the best doctors, looking at her, right? And it's well known. I don't know if it's well known that she's, Superman's wife. Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. So anyway, the best doctors are on her, saving her, and they're like, look, Superman or Mr. Kent, maybe everybody knows he's Superman at this point. Lois has cancer, and maybe it's due to radiation. It'd be cool if it was as a result of all the x-ray vision and the heat vision over the years, just being around that. Maybe he's given her cancer. So he's dealing with some guilt there as well. He's by her bedside. She's not doing well. She's going through chemotherapy and all this kind of stuff. She doesn't have much longer to live. And a thing comes up on the news about this like school shooting, but like the guy who's doing the school shooting is this really, really powerful guy, unlike a normal human being. Now, Metropolis, because Superman is kind of taken a step back to enjoy, he's kind of retired in some respects. He's not out there fighting crime like the way he once was. So there's new superheroes in Metropolis, but they're not really super powered superheroes. They're kind of like Batman. They're just teenagers and, you know, MMA fighters and this kind of stuff. And they're kind of trying to, you know, follow in the footsteps of Superman and do right by him and clean up the city. But they're just overwhelmed when this new threat comes, who's, you know, this super powered, you know, say 20-year-old. So Lois is like, you know, Clark, you should go. And he's like, no, I'll never leave this side. I want to be with you, right? And he's like, yeah, but like Clark, it's kids, right? And like these superheroes are just getting crushed. Like, you have to help them. So he's like, okay. So he dons the suit, not like the traditional Superman suit that we're all familiar with. Like, I would give him a new suit, something like makes him look like a king. Like, I don't know. I haven't really envisioned it, but I think of him as like maybe a darker blue with some, I don't know, like a I don't know. I just, in my mind, it's hard to describe, but in my mind, to have like this dope suit. But anyway, it'd be a reimagining of the suit, and he shows up, slams down the concrete, busts into the building, and it's a bunch of dudes. But one main guy's got like the really super strength. The other guys, he can just kind of bat them away like flies. But this other kid, he's pretty strong, and he's giving Superman a run for his money, throwing him into lockers, kicking him through walls, you know, slamming him down in the gymnasium or whatever. Superman eventually gets the upper hand, beats up the guys. They take off. Superman's left. His clothes are torn. He's bloodied. And he picks himself up and he goes to see the old man Bruce Wayne. So Batman, because Batman is like 70, Batman isn't out fighting crime anymore, but he's still a detective, right? So he's still, you know, helping Superman. So from the fight, he has a piece of fabric that he ripped off one of the lead guy, like the bad guys of the crew. Or maybe some of the blood from the guy got on his cape or something. Anyway, he brings it back to Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne still has the Batcave, all the, you know, the electronics and the gadgets. And he says, hey, can you analyze this blood for me? So he analyzes it, and Bruce is like, this is crazy. You know, Clark, come look at this. He's like, what is it? He's like, it's Kryptonian. He's like, what? Impossible, right? As it turns out, I haven't really figured this part out, but as it turns out, it's like part Clark's DNA. Maybe they analyzed some of Clark's blood, and it's like, look, it's sharing a lot of the same markers as you. I think this is your son. He's like, well, that's impossible, right? I've only had, you know, relations with Lois, and she's never had a kid, so that's not possible. So there's some other DNA in there. He goes, you know, if this is a clone, you know, used from my DNA, I know who's behind this. So you keep working. I have to go back to Lois. So he goes back to Lois, or maybe he gets interrupted by like a text from the doctor. As it turns out, Lois has passed away. This guy who's, you know, at the school, the bad guy, has robbed Clark, Superman, of his last moments with his dying wife. And Superman is pissed. So he goes to Lex Luthor, who's now, you know, old man Lex Luthor, flies in, busts through his penthouse, and they have a conversation that doesn't go so well. He, you know, Clark is almost in a rage. He's emotionally distraught. He grabs Lex, slams him up against the wall, and he's gonna just beat him to death. Meanwhile, this kid from the school shooter flies in and double fists Superman right in the chest, sends him flying through a wall, and, you know, beats him up pretty handily. Superman is, you know, attempting to look for answers. What's going on? Here we fill in a little bit of the backstory that this guy, Lex, is like, you know, I thought you'd be happy to see your son. He's like, that's not my son. I don't know what you're talking about. So Lex kind of fills him in on some of the details, that he took his blood, mixed it with some of, you know, Lex's blood, mixed it with, you know, put it in a surrogate or something like that. I don't know how the science is going to work out, but basically it's part Superman, part human. So the guy is pretty strong, pretty fast, and all that kind of stuff. He might have some powers, he might not have others. Like, I don't know if he can fly, or I don't know. Have to work that out. But he's basically part Superman. So anyway, Superman wants nothing to do with this kid. doesn't want anything to do with Lex. He takes off, and he's really, mourning. He buries Lois. It's like a hero's tribute. All the superheroes come out. I'm talking Batman and Flash and Green Arrow, and they're all giving him, giving Lois a send-off and comforting their friend who just lost the love of his life. And Superman's taken some time off, going to the Fortress of Solitude, thinking about his life, and maybe he shouldn't have worked so hard saving these people and given up so much for himself. And really he's really struggling with that part of it. It's like, whenever he saves somebody in Metropolis, there's always a new threat. It's never ending. And so there's no real, time that he can take off. And in fact, he's already come to terms with not saving everybody because, he's just one person and he's saving people in one city, but he's not saving people in other parts of the world. So he has already made a choice to save some people and not others. So he's taking that a step further. He's like, look, I'm old. I've taken a step back. There's these new heroes. He kind of, wants out of the game. Okay, so in the final act, a new threat comes to town. Some really powerful enemy. I don't know who, but like some really powerful foe comes to town, is, wreaking havoc, running amok. And all the local superheroes, again, they're just getting crushed, right? So Bruce Wayne meets with Superman and convinces him, hey man, like you have to snap out of this. Your city needs you, right? And I did some further analysis on that blood. Only one of those kids of the group was mixed with your DNA. The others had some weird thing going on. They had superpowers or super strength or something like that, but they weren't like the other guy. It turns out that the son of Superman and Lex had taken his blood and given it to the other friends, and they too became, supercharged or, maybe momentarily superpowered. So he's like, I kind of reverse engineered this, and gives Superman these little serums. He's like, this can like boost you up. It's basically, superpowered blood, some concoction. I don't know what it is, right? Superman goes, nah, I don't need it. He's like, no, like just take it just in case, right? But just to warn you, when you inject this, you'll feel like your old self again. But when you come down, it's only temporary. When you come down, you'll be worse off than what you were. So he goes, okay, fine. So he takes the super serum and he hangs on to it, doesn't use it, and he flies into this battle scene, maybe downtown Metropolis, and fights whatever foe that he's fighting, right? And this foe is really powerful, just beating the heck out of Superman, smashing him into cars, throwing him through buildings. Really, Superman's having a hard time. He's bloody, his costume's ripped, he's just getting pounded into the cement. He takes this super serum, injects it into himself, and he becomes Superman of old. He becomes really strong, like lifts the guy up. The bad guy throws him through a building, super speed once again. He's, the superhero that we've all grown to love, right? But after a while, it starts to wear off and it begins to fade, right? Batman shows up, and Batman's jacked on this super serum as well. And so he's, the Batman of old, doing flips, and, he's got the gadgets, and he's lending a hand, right? But he's outmatched. This enemy, whoever's come to Metropolis, is really, really powerful. Batman gets, knocked unconscious and thrown across the city into a lake or whatever. Superman is just getting destroyed. The serum is wore off, and now he's weaker than ever, right? Next thing you know, just as Superman is about to die at the hands of this enemy, the young kid shows up and smashes this enemy, and really him and his buddies take over and really destroy this threat. And in the last panel, you got the boy Superman, standing over Superman, who's been bloodied and beaten, clothes are ripped. And the last panel is just him holding out his hand, like offering him a hand up. And that just says, to be continued. So the premise there, I guess, is like a passing of the torch, if you will, to a new Superman. But the Superman is part good, part evil, and maybe Lex can control him through some like mind control or through some manipulation. So he's very volatile. He's not as powerful. Sometimes he's opportunistic and he doesn't necessarily do the right thing. He's got a group of his goons that all are like feeding off him like some parasite, like they need his blood for their own kind of to fulfill their own drug. And so these guys, maybe temptation gets the best of them sometimes. They rob banks or they, you know, do some bad things, but deep down he still has that kind of Clark Kent DNA, and he feels beholden to uphold his heritage. Now that he knew, because maybe in the past he didn't know that he was part Superman, but now that he knows, he's kind of shifted his moral compass, and so now he wants to do right, and maybe goes under Superman's wing, and the next series could be them kind of working on their relationship. So there it is. That's one idea that I would pitch to DC if I had the chance. I think that'd be a really cool comic book. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think. If you like the idea, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.